The room buzzed with energy as people took their seats inside the sprawling television studio. It was unlike any ordinary debate hall. It was a place where politics met entertainment, where millions tuned in not just to hear arguments but to witness drama unfold. Holographic screens lined the walls, projecting shimmering images of flags, statistics, and scrolling headlines. Neon lights bathed the space in shades of blue and white, giving it an almost otherworldly feel. This was no simple discussion. This was a spectacle. In the center of the stage stood a sleek, curved desk designed to look more like a spaceship console than furniture. Two chairs faced each other across the polished surface, waiting for the main event. Above them hung cameras that swiveled silently, ready to capture every word, every gesture, every flicker of emotion. Behind the desk, a massive screen displayed the title of tonight's program, Prime Debate, Kash versus Jasmine. The letters glowed in bold red and gold, ensuring no one could miss what was about to happen. The audience filled the rows quickly, chatting animatedly among themselves. They came from all walks of life, young students eager to see history in the making, seasoned professionals looking for insights, and even casual viewers drawn by the promise of fireworks. Everyone had heard the hype. Tonight's matchup pitted Kash Patel, a name many thought had faded into obscurity, against Jasmine Crockett, the rising star who seemed unstoppable. Social media was already ablaze with predictions, memes, and heated debates. People were divided, some rooting for Kash's comeback story while others cheered for Jasmine's relentless ambition. Among the crowd sat Emily Dawson, a young journalist with a notebook clutched tightly in her hands. She adjusted her glasses, nervously as she scanned the room, taking in the scene. Emily wasn't here just to report on the debate. She wanted to understand these two individuals better. Kash Patel intrigued her, not because of his past controversies, but because of the quiet dignity he carried despite them. And then there was Jasmine Crockett, whose charisma and confidence made her impossible to ignore. Emily scribbled a few notes before leaning back in her seat, trying to calm the flutter in her chest. Something told her this would be a night worth remembering. Behind the scenes, Kash Patel paced slowly in his dressing room. He wore a navy blue suit tailored perfectly to fit his lean frame. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, though a few strands refused to stay in place. Kash ran his fingers through it absent-mindedly as he stared at his reflection in the mirror. He didn't recognize the man staring back at him. Was this really the same person who once stood accused of corruption, who had been vilified in newspapers and mocked on late-night shows? It felt like another lifetime ago. He sighed deeply, closing his eyes for a moment. Coming back to this world hadn't been easy. For years, Kash avoided the spotlight, choosing instead to work quietly behind the scenes, mentoring young leaders and writing essays on policy reform. But when the invitation arrived, a chance to face off against Jasmine Crockett on national television, he couldn't say no. Not only did it offer redemption, but it also gave him a platform to share ideas he believed mattered now more than ever. 5 minutes, called out a production assistant, poking her head into the room. Kash nodded, straightening his tie. He knew he wasn't the favorite tonight. Most people expected him to crumble under Jasmine's sharp tongue. Yet as he stepped toward the stage, he felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened next, he vowed to stay true to himself. On the opposite side of the hallway, Jasmine Crockett exuded confidence. Her fiery red blazer matched her personality, bold, unapologetic, and impossible to overlook. Long curls framed her face, and her makeup was flawless, accentuating her striking features. If Kash represented calm resilience, Jasmine embodied fierce determination. She checked her notes one last time, though she barely needed them. Every argument, every counterpoint had been rehearsed countless times. Jasmine glanced up as a producer approached her. "Ready?" he asked with a grin. She smirked, nodding confidently. "Let's do this," she replied, her voice steady and commanding. As she walked toward the stage, she couldn't help but think about how far she'd come. From grassroots activism to becoming one of the most talked-about voices in politics, her journey had been anything but easy. And tonight, she intended to prove why she deserved every bit of attention she received. Back in the audience, the anticipation grew palpable. Conversations faded into whispers as the lights dimmed slightly, signaling the start of the show. A booming voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Prime Debate. Tonight we bring you two powerful voices shaping our nation's future." Cheers erupted as the camera panned over the crowd, capturing their excitement. Then, the spotlight shifted to the stage. Kash Patel emerged first, walking steadily to his seat. The audience greeted him with polite applause, though a few scattered boos hinted at lingering skepticism. He offered a small smile, acknowledging both supporters and critics alike. Moments later, Jasmine Crockett strode onto the stage, her presence commanding immediate attention. The cheers grew louder, more enthusiastic, as she waved confidently to the crowd. As they settled into their seats, the moderator introduced the format of the evening. Each speaker would have opportunities to present their views, followed by rebuttals and cross-examinations. Topics ranged from economic policies to social justice issues, promising a wide-ranging and intense discussion. The stakes were high, not just for Kash and Jasmine, but for everyone watching at home. When the first question was posed, directed at Kash, the tension in the air became almost tangible. Could he hold his ground against someone as formidable as Jasmine? Or would he falter under pressure, proving his critics right? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain. The next hour would change everything. For Kash Patel, for Jasmine Crockett, and perhaps for the entire country. Emily leaned forward in her seat, pen poised above her notebook. She watched Kash, intently, searching for signs of nerves or hesitation. Instead, she saw something else entirely, a quiet strength, a resolve that suggested he might surprise everyone tonight. Across the aisle, fans of Jasmine cheered loudly, convinced she would dominate the debate. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the game was about to begin. The debate began with a question aimed directly at Kash Patel. The moderator's voice boomed through the studio as he asked, "Mr. Patel, how do you respond to critics who say your past controversies make you unfit to lead or influence policy today?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Kash. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, the first test of whether he could withstand the pressure. Kash took a deep breath before responding. His tone was measured, almost soft, but carried weight. "Mistakes are part of being human," he said, looking straight into the camera. "I've made mine and I've worked hard to learn from them. What matters now isn't where I've been, but where we can go together as a country." His words were simple yet sincere, drawing a few nods of approval from the audience. However, before he could elaborate further, Jasmine Crockett interjected. "With respect, Kash," she began, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "actions speak louder than words, and your actions have left a lot to be desired." She leaned forward, her piercing gaze locking onto him. "You were investigated for misconduct, accused of compromising national security protocols, and forced out of office. How can anyone trust you to guide us when your judgment has already failed so spectacularly?" The crowd murmured in agreement, some even booing Kash lightly. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly caught off guard by Jasmine's directness. Her confidence filled the room, making it seem like she had already won the argument. Cameras zoomed in on Kash's face, capturing every twitch and blink. For a brief moment, it looked like he might falter. But then something shifted. Kash sat up straighter, his jaw tightening slightly. When he spoke again, his voice was firmer. "I won't deny my past mistakes," he admitted, "but I will challenge the narrative that those mistakes define me entirely. If we judged everyone by their lowest moments, none of us would have a place here tonight, including you, Jasmine." The audience reacted immediately, some gasping at Kash's boldness while others applauded hesitantly. It wasn't a knockout punch, but it was enough to stop Jasmine's momentum temporarily. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed but undeniably intrigued. "Bold words," she shot back, leaning back in her chair with a smirk. "Let's see if they hold up as we move forward." As the debate continued, the topics shifted to broader issues like economic inequality and healthcare reform. Here, Kash found his footing. While Jasmine excelled at delivering sharp sound bites, Kash demonstrated a deeper understanding of policy details. He spoke passionately about creating jobs in underserved communities and improving access to affordable health care. His arguments weren't flashy, but they resonated with people who valued substance over style. Jasmine countered with equally compelling points, emphasizing innovation and entrepreneurship as solutions to societal problems. She painted a picture of a future driven by technology and ambition, appealing to younger viewers who dreamed of breaking boundaries. Her energy was infectious, and the audience responded enthusiastically, cheering loudly whenever she landed. A particularly strong point. Emily Dawson watched intently from her seat, scribbling notes furiously. She noticed how different the two debaters were, not just in their ideas but in their approach. Kash relied on calm reasoning and personal anecdotes, while Jasmine thrived on charisma and bold promises. Both styles had merit, but only one could win over the majority. Midway through the segment, the moderator posed a question about climate change. Kash argued for immediate action, citing scientific data and warning of catastrophic consequences if nothing changed. "We don't have time for half measures," he insisted. "Every delay puts our planet and our children at greater risk." Jasmine listened patiently, nodding occasionally to show she understood. But when it was her turn to speak, she struck back with precision. "Of course we need to address climate change," she agreed. "But let's not pretend it's as simple as flipping a switch. Real progress requires balancing environmental goals with economic realities. We can't save the planet if we destroy livelihoods in the process." Her rebuttal earned thunderous applause, especially from those seated near Emily. They cheered loudly, chanting Jasmine's name. Kash smiled faintly, acknowledging the strength of her argument. He knew he couldn't match her flair for rhetoric, but he refused to back down. Instead, he doubled down on his message, speaking directly to the audience. "This isn't about choosing between the economy and the environment," Kash explained. "It's about finding solutions that work for both. Yes, it's complicated, but complexity shouldn't paralyze us. It should inspire us to think bigger, to aim higher." His words may not have sparked the same level of excitement as Jasmine's, but they planted seeds of doubt in some minds. Was she oversimplifying the issue? Or was Kash being too idealistic? The tension between them grew thicker with each passing minute. Whenever Kash gained ground, Jasmine quickly regained control, steering the conversation back to her strengths. And whenever Jasmine pushed too hard, Kash found ways to subtly undermine her confidence. It was a delicate dance. Neither side willing to give an inch. At one point, the moderator turned to Jasmine with a pointed question. "Ms. Crockett, critics often accuse you of prioritizing headlines over practical solutions. How do you respond to that?" The audience quieted, eager to hear her answer. Jasmine didn't hesitate. "Headlines matter because they start conversations," she replied confidently. "But let's be clear, I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to deliver results. Every policy I propose is backed by research and real-world applications. If people want to call that flashy, so be it. At least I'm getting things done." Her response drew mixed reactions. Some cheered wildly, impressed by her defiance. Others exchanged skeptical glances, wondering if she was dodging the question. Kash seized the opportunity to counter. "Getting things done is important," he said, his tone respectful but firm. "But so is doing them right. Flash without follow-through leaves us worse off than before." The audience erupted into applause, divided once again. Some supported Kash's emphasis on accountability, while others admired Jasmine's unapologetic ambition. Emily jotted down observations, noting how evenly matched the two seemed despite their contrasting styles. Neither had delivered a decisive blow yet, but the tension kept building. As the second half of the debate approached, the moderator introduced a new topic: leadership and integrity. "Both of you claim to represent ethical governance," he said, "but recent scandals have raised questions about transparency in politics. What does integrity mean to you, and how will you uphold it?" This time, Kash answered first. "Integrity means owning your mistakes and working tirelessly to correct them. he said. It means putting the needs of others above your own ego. And yes, it means being transparent even when it's uncomfortable. Jasmine nodded thoughtfully, appearing to consider his words. Then she added her perspective. Integrity also means standing by your principles no matter the cost, she countered. It means fighting for what's right even when everyone else tells you to stay quiet. Their answers overlapped in surprising ways, highlighting shared values beneath their differences. Yet the subtext of their exchange revealed lingering doubts. Could Kash truly overcome his troubled past? Was Jasmine as principled as she claimed? The audience sensed the underlying tension, leaning forward in anticipation of what might come next. In the final moments of this segment, the moderator posed a rhetorical question to both candidates. If elected leader tomorrow, what single action would you take to restore public trust in government? Kash and Jasmine exchanged a glance, each silently gauging the other's strategy. The stakes were rising, and neither wanted to leave anything unsaid. Kash spoke first, his voice steady. I'd create a national advisory council made up of ordinary citizens, not politicians, to oversee key decisions. True accountability starts with involving the people we serve. Jasmine followed, her tone unwavering. I'd implement mandatory ethics training for all public officials, ensuring that integrity becomes the foundation of everything we do. Applause rippled through the crowd, though it was clear that opinions remained split. Kash's humility appealed to some, while Jasmine's decisiveness captivated others. As the segment ended, Emily glanced around the room, noticing how animated the audience had become. Conversations buzzed, debates flared, and emotions ran high. Whatever happened, next, one thing was certain: the night was far from over. The debate had reached its midpoint when the unexpected happened. Just as Kash Patel finished answering a question about government transparency, the moderator interrupted with an announcement that sent ripples through the studio. Gentlemen, he said, his voice unusually serious. We've just received breaking news that requires our attention. He paused briefly, letting the gravity of his words sink in before continuing. Documents have surfaced alleging misconduct within Ms. Crockett's campaign team. These allegations are currently unverified, but they involve claims of financial impropriety and unethical practices. We felt it necessary to address this development given its relevance to tonight's discussion. The room fell silent. For a few seconds, no one moved or spoke. Then, all at once, chaos erupted. Cameras panned wildly between Kash and Jasmine, capturing their reactions. Kash sat perfectly still, his eyes wide with surprise. He hadn't seen this coming, not even close. On the other hand, Jasmine looked furious. Her jaw tightened and her hands gripped the edge of the desk as if trying to steady herself. What is this? Jasmine demanded, turning sharply toward the moderator. Unverified documents? This is absurd. You're accusing me and my team of something without evidence. How can you justify airing baseless accusations during a national broadcast? The moderator held up a hand, attempting to calm her down. Ms. Crockett, we aren't making accusations. We're simply reporting what has been leaked. As public figures, both you and Mr. Patel understand the importance of addressing such claims openly. Jasmine shook her head, visibly struggling to compose herself. This isn't journalism, it's a smear campaign. Someone clearly wants to sabotage my reputation and you're letting them get away with it. She turned to the audience, her voice rising. Don't let this distract you from the real issues. My record speaks for itself. Her supporters clapped loudly, rallying behind her. But not everyone was convinced. Murmurs spread throughout the crowd as people whispered to each other, debating whether the allegations could be true. Emily Dawson, sitting near the front, watched closely. She noticed how some audience members exchanged skeptical glances, while others nodded along with Jasmine's defense. It was clear that this twist had shaken everyone, including Kash. Kash, however, remained eerily calm. He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying Jasmine carefully. He knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for her but for him as well. If handled poorly, the situation could spiral out of control. But if played right, it could become an opportunity to demonstrate leadership under pressure. Mr. Patel, the moderator said, turning to Kash, do you have any thoughts on these allegations against Ms. Crockett's team? Kash hesitated for a fraction of a second before speaking. His tone was measured, almost gentle. I think it's important to approach this situation with caution. Unverified leaks can be dangerous. They create confusion and erode trust. At the same time, ignoring them entirely isn't the answer either. Transparency matters, especially in leadership roles. His response drew murmurs of approval from parts of the audience. Some appreciated his balanced perspective, seeing it as proof that he could remain level-headed even in tense situations. Others, however, wondered if he was being too diplomatic, perhaps avoiding taking a stand altogether. Jasmine seized the opening. Transparency? Really, Kash? That's rich coming from someone who spent years dodging accountability himself. Her voice dripped with sarcasm, and she fixed him with a piercing glare. You want to talk about ethics? About doing the right thing? Look in the mirror. The jab hit its mark. Kash flinched ever so slightly, though he quickly recovered. Instead of retaliating, he took a deep breath and responded calmly. Fair point, Jasmine. I've made mistakes and I won't deny that. But pointing fingers doesn't solve anything. What matters now is figuring out the truth and ensuring justice is served, whatever that looks like. His restraint caught many off guard. Rather than escalating the conflict, Kash chose to de-escalate, focusing on the bigger picture. It was a calculated move, designed to highlight his maturity and ability to rise above petty squabbles. And it worked. A wave of applause swept through the audience, signaling a subtle shift in momentum. Jasmine, realizing she might be losing ground, doubled down. Justice starts with honesty, she declared, leaning forward again. And I'm being completely honest with you all. These allegations are false. They're part of a coordinated effort to undermine my campaign, but I won't let fear-mongering silence me. Not now, not ever. Her passion was undeniable, and it resonated deeply with her supporters. Cheers erupted from the crowd, drowning out whispers of doubt. Yet there was something different about the atmosphere now. The energy had shifted, from excitement to uncertainty. People weren't sure whom to believe anymore. Emily scribbled furiously in her notebook, capturing every detail. She observed how Kash's composure contrasted sharply with Jasmine's intensity. While Jasmine relied on emotion to sway the audience, Kash focused on logic and reason. Both approaches had merit, but only one could prevail in the end. As the segment continued, the moderator asked follow-up questions, probing deeper into the implications of the leaked documents. Kash reiterated the need for thorough investigations, emphasizing fairness and due process. We owe it to everyone involved to get to the bottom of this, he said. Rushing to judgment helps no one, Jasmine countered by accusing her opponents of orchestrating the leak. This isn't about finding the truth, it's about tearing me down, she argued. But I refuse to play their game. I'll keep fighting for what's right regardless of the obstacles. The exchange grew increasingly heated, with both debaters trading barbs and counter-arguments. At times it felt less like a policy discussion and more like a courtroom drama. The audience hung on every word, their emotions swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Eventually, the moderator stepped in to steer the conversation back on track. Let's pivot to another topic, he suggested. Both of you have spoken extensively about integrity and accountability. How do you plan to rebuild trust in institutions that have lost credibility over the years? Kash answered first, his voice steady and sincere. Rebuilding trust starts with listening, he explained. Too often, leaders make decisions, in isolation, without consulting the people affected by those choices. I believe in creating spaces where ordinary citizens can voice their concerns, and ensuring those voices are heard. Jasmine nodded thoughtfully before adding her perspective. Listening is important, but action speaks louder than words, she countered. We need tangible results, not empty promises. Reforms must happen quickly and decisively if we want to restore faith in our systems. Their answers highlighted yet another key difference between them. Kash prioritized inclusivity and collaboration, while Jasmine favored speed and efficiency. Neither approach was inherently better. It depended on what kind of leadership people valued more. As the segment drew to a close, the moderator thanked both candidates for their insights, but the tension lingered, hanging thick in the air like storm clouds. Everyone knew the leaked documents would dominate conversations long after the debate ended. For Kash, it was an unexpected challenge, but also an opportunity to prove his resilience. For Jasmine, it was a test of her ability to navigate adversity without losing sight of her goals. In the audience, Emily glanced around, noticing how divided people seemed. Some cheered for Kash's calm demeanor, while others applauded Jasmine's fiery determination. No matter who emerged victorious, one thing was certain. The debate had transformed from a mere competition into a defining moment for both candidates. Backstage, the producers scrambled to manage the fallout. Whispers circulated about the source of the leak, with theories ranging from political rivals to internal betrayals. Meanwhile, Kash and Jasmine prepared for the next round, knowing full well that the stakes had never been higher. Whatever happened next, it would shape not only their futures but also the nation's perception of leadership and accountability. And somewhere in the crowd, Emily smiled faintly, sensing that history was unfolding right before her eyes. During the commercial break, the energy behind the scenes was electric. While the cameras were off, the tension between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett only intensified. Backstage, the two debaters retreated to opposite corners of the production area, each trying to regroup before returning to the stage. The air buzzed with whispers from staff members, producers, and assistants, all scrambling to manage the fallout from the leaked documents. Kash stood near a monitor displaying the controversial headlines. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. A producer approached him cautiously, offering reassurance. "You're doing great out there, Kash," she said softly. "Just stay focused." He nodded, thanking her with a polite smile. But inside, Kash felt a storm brewing. He knew this debate wasn't just about policy anymore. It had become a test of character. As he mulled over his next steps, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Pulling it out, he saw a cryptic text message. "Watch your back. This isn't over. Yet." The message sent a chill down his spine. Was someone warning him? Or was it a veiled threat? Kash stared at the screen for a long moment before slipping the phone back into his pocket. He decided not to dwell on it, at least not now. There was still work to do and he couldn't afford distractions. On the other side of the room, Jasmine Crockett was anything but calm. She paced angrily, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. Two producers hovered nearby, attempting to placate her. "Jasmine, we understand how frustrating this must be," one of them said. "But you need to stay composed when we go back on air." Frustration boiled over as she spun around to face them. "Composed? Are you kidding me? Someone just tried to sabotage my campaign live on national television, and you expect me to act like nothing happened?" Her voice rose with every word, drawing curious glances from others backstage. "This is unacceptable," she continued, jabbing a finger toward the monitor displaying the leaked documents. "I want answers. Who leaked this? Where did it come from? And why are you letting it dominate the conversation?" The producers exchanged uneasy looks. They didn't have answers, only theories. One of them ventured carefully. "We're looking into it, Jasmine. But right now, your focus needs to be on finishing strong. Let's use this as an opportunity to show resilience." Jasmine clenched her fists, visibly struggling to control her temper. After a long pause, she exhaled sharply and nodded. "Fine," she muttered. "But if this ruins my reputation, heads will roll." While Kash and Jasmine dealt with their respective challenges, Emily Dawson moved quietly through the chaos, her curiosity piqued by the unfolding drama. She had slipped away from her seat in the audience during the break, hoping to gather more insight into what was happening behind the scenes. With her notebook clutched tightly in her hands, she observed everything: the frantic movements of the crew, the heated exchanges among staff members, and the contrasting demeanors of the two debaters. As she wandered closer to the monitors displaying the leaked documents, Emily noticed something odd. Some of the files appeared to contain emails and financial records, but they weren't labeled with any official government seals or verifications. Instead, they bore metadata suggesting they originated from within Jasmine's own team. Frowning, Emily leaned in for a closer look, jotting down notes furiously. Her instincts told her this story ran deeper than anyone realized. If these leaks really came from inside Jasmine's camp, it raised troubling questions about loyalty and betrayal. Could someone close to her have orchestrated this? Or was it a rogue actor acting independently? Either way, the implications were enormous. Emily hesitated for a moment, debating whether to approach Jasmine directly. But seeing the fiery politician pacing and snapping at producers, she decided against it. Instead, she turned her attention to Kash, who seemed lost in thought near the far wall. Approaching him cautiously, she cleared her throat to get his attention. "Mr. Patel?" she asked tentatively. "I'm Emily Dawson, a journalist covering tonight's event. Do you mind if I ask a quick question?" Kash glanced up, surprised but polite. "Of course," he replied, gesturing for her to continue. "I couldn't help noticing the text message you received earlier," Emily began, choosing her words carefully. "Is everything okay?" For a brief second, Kash looked startled. Then, he chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You've got sharp eyes, Miss Dawson. Don't worry, it's nothing serious. Just a reminder that things aren't always what they seem." His vague response left Emily intrigued but unsatisfied. Before she could press further, a stagehand called out, signaling the end of the break. Kash gave her a small nod and headed back toward the set, leaving Emily with more questions than answers. Back on stage, the debate resumed with renewed intensity. The moderator wasted no time diving back into the controversy surrounding the leaked documents. "Ms. Crockett, how do you respond to critics who say these allegations raise legitimate concerns about your leadership style?" Jasmine straightened, in her chair, her expression resolute. "Let me make one thing clear," she said firmly. "These allegations are baseless, and I stand by my integrity. If anyone thinks they can intimidate me with lies, they're sorely mistaken. I'll fight, tooth and nail, to prove my innocence and to protect the values I believe in." Her defiance earned loud applause from her supporters, though some skeptics remained unconvinced. Kash watched silently, waiting for his turn to speak. When the moderator turned to him, Kash chose his words carefully. "Allegations like these remind us why transparency matters so much," he said. "No matter where they come from or who they target, we should investigate them thoroughly and fairly. Justice isn't about protecting reputations. It's about uncovering the truth." His measured response drew nods of approval from parts of the audience, reinforcing his image as a steady, principled leader. Yet Jasmine wasn't about to let him gain the upper hand. Leaning forward, she challenged him directly. "You talk a lot about fairness, Kash," she said, her tone sharp. "But do you really believe in it? Or are you using this situation to score points? Because if you think I'm going to sit here and let you capitalize on my misfortune, you're wrong." Kash met her gaze calmly, unfazed by her accusation. "I'm not here to exploit anyone's struggles," he replied. "What I am here to do is advocate for accountability, for everyone, including myself. That's what true leadership looks like." The exchange sparked murmurs throughout the crowd, with opinions divided once again. Some admired Kash's restraint and focus on principles, while others praised Jasmine's unyielding determination. It was becoming increasingly clear that neither candidate would back down easily. As the debate progressed, the moderator shifted to broader topics like education reform and foreign policy. Both Kash and Jasmine delivered compelling arguments, showcasing their expertise and vision for the future. Yet, the shadow of the leaked documents loomed large, coloring every interaction and response. Emily returned to her seat in the audience, her mind racing with possibilities. She had glimpsed enough backstage to piece together fragments of the bigger picture, but not enough to fully understand it. One thing was certain: tonight's events would leave a lasting impact on both Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett. When the final segment concluded, the studio erupted into applause. Cameras panned across the audience, capturing reactions ranging from admiration to skepticism. Kash and Jasmine shook hands stiffly, their expressions guarded. Though the debate was officially over, the real battle had only begun. Behind the scenes, Emily reflected on what she had witnessed. The leaked documents, the cryptic messages, the raw emotions, all of it pointed to a story far larger than a single televised event. As she packed up her notebook, she resolved to dig deeper, knowing that the truth might change everything. The final segment of the debate arrived with an intensity that left no room for hesitation. Both Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett understood that this was their last chance to leave a lasting impression on the audience. The moderators had saved the most explosive topic for last: accountability and leadership. It was a subject tailor-made for the controversies swirling around them, and neither candidate could afford to hold back. "Mr. Patel," the moderator began, turning to Kash, "earlier, you emphasized the importance of transparency and fairness. But let's dig deeper. If you were given the power to lead today, how would you ensure accountability, not just for others but for yourself?" Kash took a deep breath before responding. He knew this question carried weight, especially after the leaked documents had dominated much of the evening. His voice was calm but firm as he spoke. "Accountability starts with humility," he said, looking directly into the camera. "It means admitting when you're wrong and taking steps to fix it. For me, that means creating systems where oversight isn't optional. It's mandatory." He paused briefly, letting his words sink in. "I propose forming independent review boards made up of citizens and experts who can evaluate decisions without bias. Leaders shouldn't fear scrutiny, they should welcome it. Because at the end of the day, we're here to serve the people, not ourselves." His answer drew respectful applause from parts of the audience. Some nodded approvingly, appreciating his focus on systemic solutions rather than personal attacks. Emily Dawson scribbled notes furiously, noting how Kash's emphasis on humility resonated with those who valued integrity over charisma. Yet she also noticed skepticism in other corners of the room. Could someone so focused on process truly inspire change? Jasmine seized the opportunity to counter. "Independent review boards sound nice in theory," she said, leaning forward with a smirk. "But let's be honest, they're often bogged down by bureaucracy and inefficiency. Real accountability comes from action, not committees. You need leaders who aren't afraid to make tough calls and stick by them." Her rebuttal earned cheers from her supporters, particularly younger viewers drawn to her boldness. But Kash wasn't about to let her dominate the narrative. "Action is important," he agreed, nodding slightly. "But actions without accountability lead to abuse of power. We've seen it happen too many times. That's why checks and balances matter." Jasmine shot back immediately, her tone sharp. "Checks and balances are meaningless if they slow progress to a crawl. Sometimes you have to move fast, even if it means ruffling feathers. Would you rather wait for endless debates while problems grow worse?" The exchange grew increasingly heated, with both candidates trading barbs and counter-arguments. The audience hung on every word, their emotions swinging back and forth like a pendulum. One moment, they applauded Kash's measured approach. The next, they cheered Jasmine's fiery determination. It was clear that the two represented starkly different philosophies, one rooted in caution and collaboration, the other in speed and decisiveness. As the clock ticked down, the moderator introduced a surprise twist closing statements. Each candidate would have 2 minutes to summarize their vision and appeal directly to the audience. Kash went first, rising slowly from his chair. His demeanor was composed, almost serene, as he stepped toward the podium. "For years, I've been told I don't belong here," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "that my past mistakes disqualify me from contributing to our future. But tonight I stand before you not as a perfect man, but as someone willing to learn, grow, and serve. Leadership isn't about never failing. It's about getting back up when you do." He paused, scanning the crowd. "We face challenges unlike any we've seen before. Climate crises, economic inequality, threats to democracy itself. These issues demand honesty, courage, and unity, and they require leaders who put the greater good above their own egos. That's the kind of leader I strive to be." The audience erupted into applause, some standing to show their support. Even critics found themselves moved by Kash's sincerity. He returned to his seat, breathing deeply as Jasmine prepared to deliver her closing remarks. When Jasmine approached the podium, her presence commanded attention. She exuded confidence, her posture straight and her gaze unwavering. "Let me tell you something," she began, her voice powerful and clear. "We don't have time to dwell on failures or second-guess every decision. Our world moves too fast for that. What we need are leaders who aren't afraid to take risks, who aren't afraid to dream bigger than anyone else." She leaned closer, to the microphone, her tone growing more passionate. "Yes, I've faced criticism. Yes, there are people out there trying to tear me down. But I refuse to let fear dictate my choices. Progress doesn't happen because we play it safe. It happens because we dare to push boundaries." Her speech ended with thunderous applause, particularly from younger members of the audience inspired by her ambition. Cameras zoomed in on her face, capturing the fire in her eyes. As she returned to her seat, the energy in the room was electric, charged with anticipation of what came next. The moderator thanked both candidates for their participation and reminded the audience to reflect on the ideas presented. Then, with a final word of gratitude, the cameras cut to black, signaling the official end of the debate. Backstage, chaos ensued as staff members scrambled to wrap up production. Reporters swarmed Kash and Jasmine, eager for sound bites and reactions. Emily Dawson stayed in her seat watching the scene unfold. She had witnessed firsthand how the debate transformed from a policy discussion into a defining moment for both candidates. Kash's quiet resilience contrasted sharply with Jasmine's unapologetic ambition, leaving the audience and the nation divided. Who had won? It depended on whom you asked. Backstage, Kash received a text message from an unknown number. "You did well tonight, but remember, this is only the beginning." He stared at the screen, unsure whether to feel reassured or uneasy. Meanwhile, Jasmine confronted the producers one last time, demanding answers about the source of the leaked documents. Her frustration was palpable, but so was her determination to keep moving forward. As the crowd dispersed and the studio lights dimmed, Emily slipped away quietly, her notebook brimming with observations. She knew this story wasn't over. It was just getting started. In the days following the debate, the nation was ablaze with discussions about Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett. Social media feeds overflowed with memes, hot takes, and impassioned arguments. News outlets dissected every word, gesture, and policy. Proposal from the event, analyzing who had won and why. For Kash, it marked the beginning of an unexpected resurgence, a chance to rebuild his reputation and inspire a new generation of leaders. For Jasmine, it became a test of resilience, forcing her to confront allegations that threatened to overshadow her accomplishments. Kash woke up early one morning after the debate, stepping onto the balcony of his modest apartment. The sun rose, slowly over Washington, D.C., casting golden light across the skyline. He sipped his coffee quietly, scrolling through his phone to see what people were saying about him. Some praised his humility and focus on accountability. Others dismissed him as too cautious or out of touch. But amidst the noise, one thing stood out: respect. Even his critics acknowledged that he had handled himself with dignity under immense pressure. That afternoon, invitations began pouring in. Organizations wanted Kash to speak at conferences and universities. Publishers offered book deals, eager to capitalize on his newfound fame. Political operatives whispered about potential roles in upcoming campaigns. Yet, Kash remained grounded. He turned down lucrative offers, choosing instead to focus on mentoring young leaders and advocating for ethical governance. "I'm not here for glory," he told a reporter during a brief interview. "I'm here because I believe we can do better. For ourselves, for our children, for the country. If my story inspires even one person to strive for integrity, then it's worth it." His sincerity resonated deeply, earning admiration from unlikely places. Critics softened their tone, acknowledging his growth since his controversial past. Supporters rallied around him, sharing stories of how his message gave them hope in uncertain times. Slowly but surely, Kash Patel transformed from a figure of skepticism into a symbol of redemption. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, faced mounting scrutiny over the leaked documents. Investigations revealed that the allegations stemmed from within her own team, a shocking betrayal that left her reeling. While she denied any involvement, the damage to her reputation was undeniable. Media coverage shifted from praising her charisma to questioning her judgment in hiring practices and managing internal conflicts. Public opinion polls showed a dip in support, though many still admired her tenacity and vision. Determined to reclaim control of the narrative, Jasmine doubled down on transparency efforts. She held press conferences, releasing statements and evidence to refute the claims against her. "I'm not perfect," she admitted during one televised address, "but I've always fought for what's right. This attack on my character won't silence me. It will only make me stronger." Her resilience earned grudging respect from some quarters, though others remained unconvinced. Younger audiences, in particular, continued to rally behind her, seeing her struggle as proof of her authenticity. Despite the challenges, Jasmine refused to step back entirely. Instead, she channeled her frustration into action, launching initiatives aimed at empowering marginalized communities and promoting civic engagement. Among those closely following the aftermath was Emily Dawson. Her investigative piece on the source of the leaked documents became a sensation, earning widespread acclaim for its thoroughness and fairness. By tracing metadata and interviewing insiders, Emily uncovered evidence suggesting the leak originated from a disgruntled former staffer seeking revenge for being fired. Her article not only shed light on the truth but also sparked broader conversations about workplace ethics and loyalty in politics. Emily's work catapulted her career, landing her a position at a prestigious national publication. Yet, she remained humble, crediting her success to curiosity and persistence. "This story taught me that nothing is ever as simple as it seems," she reflected during an interview. "Behind every headline, there are real people with real struggles. That's what makes journalism so important." As weeks turned into months, the impact of the debate rippled far beyond Kash and Jasmine. It sparked debates in living rooms, classrooms, and boardrooms about the qualities needed in leadership. People debated whether humility and process mattered more than ambition and results, or vice versa. Opinions remained divided, but one consensus emerged. Both candidates had challenged the status quo in meaningful ways. For Kash, the experience reaffirmed his belief in second chances. Walking through the streets of Washington, D.C., he often paused to chat with strangers who recognized him. Some thanked him for inspiring them to pursue careers in public service. Others simply expressed gratitude for reminding them that failure isn't final. Each interaction reinforced his commitment to creating positive change, no matter how small. Jasmine, too, found solace in knowing she had inspired countless individuals despite the controversy. Her speeches continued to draw crowds, and her social media presence grew exponentially. Though her path forward remained uncertain, she vowed never to let setbacks define her. "If this taught me anything," she said during a podcast appearance, "it's that true strength comes from rising after you fall." Back in the heart of the city, life moved on. Flags fluttered in the wind, digital billboards flashed breaking news, and people carried on with their routines. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. The debate between Kash Patel and Jasmine Crockett had ignited a spark, a reminder that leadership isn't just about winning arguments or gaining power. It's about inspiring trust, fostering dialogue, and striving toward a better tomorrow. And somewhere in the crowd, Emily smiled faintly, watching as history unfolded before her eyes.